Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 16 of Nature's Epion podcast. Today, we are going to talk about a few things, mostly just things that have been in the news and relevant to this podcast. We have a paper called If I Fits, I Sits. I'm going to talk about polar bears for a little bit and a major discovery under the Antarctic ice sheet. Ooh, mysterious. And probably talk about a little story about some orcas, and then a story about a badger. It's quite the lineup. It's going to be very interesting. I hope everyone stays tuned in to listen to my opinions on all of these nonsensical things. Well, actually, they're kind of interesting. They're not nonsense. Some of them have like bits of information to take away from it. So the first thing is the paper I Fits, I Sits, which seems to be titled after the sort of like cat video memes and pictures you see, of cats sitting in boxes or just like obscure weird areas where, cats shouldn't be sitting, but they choose to sit anyway. And the paper's goal was to basically explain why do cats love sitting in boxes so much. We see it all the time. You bring home like a new microwave, a new fridge, a new computer. It comes in a big, horrible fucking box that you got to break down and put in the recycling. But before you do that, the cat's all over it like flies on shit. They fucking love these things. They just home in on it like a missile, like a cat guided rocket launcher. And we need science to explain why the fuck is the cat always coming over and making its home in these boxes we bring home. And I thought this was a very important research paper and study that needs more funding and more attention, because clearly these are the big issues facing nature these days. Nonetheless, it's still like an interesting. I still really like this paper. So in a nutshell, I'm gonna explain like the kind of like science behind the paper. So what they did was they sent out these like big mats. They're basically like big floor mats, occupied a large area of your like floor, and it's kind of like a twister mat. You ever play Twister? Except it was like marked with different kind of like shapes. Most of them were, a lot of them were squares or rectangles or boxes, and these weren't like 3D. They were just like painted on. It was flat, and some of them weren't squares. They were like circles or kind of like, I don't know, like just jumbled messes of like half squares or half boxes and stuff like that. And they wanted the owners to wear sunglasses so that their eyes wouldn't be like a visual cue to see where the cat preferred to sit. But anyway, so a lot of these cats, they would sit on this mat, but they would sit in the area where it was more box-like and it was more like painted on, where it was more like a box. So these cats had like this weird like motivation or preference to sit in an area where it's boxy and not like circular around, even though it's not even like a box itself. It's just like a shape on the ground. And I guess the nutshell takeaway from this is that cats' eyes are primed to detect enclosures, and so much so that even like a mildly delineated like square shape on like a 2D environment surface, they'll still have a preference for that. Like they're just into finding these like enclosures, I guess, for like safety or like for hunting or prowling. It's cats love boxes. Like they sleep in boxes. Like if you have a cat bed and it's box shaped, they're gonna fucking love it. If they like to shit in boxes. Like they're obsessed with boxes. And then when I was reading this article, I kind of realized something. I was like, fuck, like humans love boxes too. Like all our bedrooms are kind of boxy. They're like mostly square. Our houses are like square. Our windows are square. Our door frames are square. Yeah, like our computer, like, towers are square. Our TV screens are square. Like everything's fucking square. Like our laptops are square. Our phones are like rectangle. Like they're all boxes basically. And I thought maybe this was like a shower thought I had. It was like, did humans and like cats like become friends over time? Like we know the story of how like wolves and dogs evolved and how like the trade-off of like man's best friend came into existence. We used to like attribute cats to being like they helped with vermin. But what if it's like we just fucking both love boxes? Like we just love rectangles. And we just like get on with them because like they're like, yo, you got a mildly delineated 2D environment, rectangular environment, bro. Like I fucking love that shit. And like we just like got on together because we both love like these fucking square shapes. And we're just like, then you think back to like ancient Egypt, they worship these things. And these guys were just building fucking pyramids out of cubes and shit. Like they love squares. And then I started thinking to myself, my cat fucking loves me. So I'm thinking I'm shaped like a goddamn Lego man probably. And like it's always sleeping on my chest and like in between my legs. I'm like, does it only love me because I have like an awkward body shape or something? And now I'm like looking in the mirror. I'm trying to see if I like, if I'm built like a Lego man or not, if I'm like a rectangular box. This research paper was a fucking rabbit hole for me. I went down it and, if you're interested in it, I suggest taking a look at it. I wish I had the names of the people that worked on it, but the paper is called "If I Fits, I Sits," and it might be worth a look to go check it out. So moving on to the next topic here, we have polar bears. Polar bears are fucking badass. So a lot of like I'm Canadian. I live in Canada. And, we got a lot of great wildlife up here. And some of those are polar bear, obviously, in, like, the further north, like, more remote regions. But, so there was an article, basically, it was an article. It was a news article, and it was basically bringing attention to historical documentation that polar bears, not only are they the most, like, the largest, like, apex predator in Canada. Yeah, they are bigger than grizzlies. And they're also, like, on land and in the water, effective predators. But, apparently, there's, like, historical documentation that these fucking things also throw rocks to kill shit. So, like, big fucking boulders and things like that. And what they would do is they would be on, like, a cliff edge, and they would basically throw these stones onto, like, a walrus's head and crush their skulls. Like, how terrifying is that? The most apex predator is also just, like, a methodic killer and just, like, evolving, So basically in this article it says, in 1865, Arctic explorer Charles Francis Hall published an account of polar bears on Baffin Island, calculating distance and the curve with astonishing accuracy when they would throw these, boulders onto, like, walruses, like, thick skulls, because I guess they're, like, can you imagine the life of a walrus? Like, not only are you, like morbidly obese and, like, horrible, like, whiskers, but you're also, like, you can't live in the water because orcas are going to eat your shit. So you can't go, like, too far inland because these polar bears are going to maul you to death. So you got to live in, like, the most uncomfortable conditions of, like, the stoniest, like, shores. And you're basically living on the borders of orca death, polar bear death. And you just got to kind of, like, toggle those options and hope they both don't show up at the same time. And then, so you're dealing with that, like, as a life problem. And now all of a sudden, polar bears are just like, you know what? Every time I run at them, they just fucking dive into the water. So from now on, I'm just going to throw these fucking boulders at them and just crush them from above. Like, walruses cannot catch a break. So, like, there's a lot of articles about climate change, causing polar bear numbers to go down. It's affecting their ways they prey on, sea lions and stuff. They need like ice floats and shit like that to kind of get the upper hand. And, all those are melting. It's not a good thing. But like, what if these motherfuckers that aren't dying are like evolving into like super predators? And they're just like, now they're like learning to throw rocks. So they're basically like a tool using animal now. They're like one step away from entering the Stone Age, which like, they think was a big part of like human evolution. All they got to do now is like start cooking the walrus meat and, they're on their way. But, I'm being a little silly with all this, but, what else is there? Like, I don't know. There was a photographer named Dimitri Koh, and I think that's how you spell it. It's Kokh. That's how, I don't know how to say it. He was photographing polar bears. I think this was in Europe or Russia. Sorry, I don't know. I can't remember. But these polar bears had taken over like abandoned houses, and he got some really good shots of those. So I thought that was pretty fucking cool. And it's like now these things are living in houses. They're throwing rocks with fucking astonishing accuracy, calculating curve and distance. They're taking over abandoned houses and like using them as like dens. I've heard stories of like polar bears like rolling into towns and just like the townspeople all just like having to be like, oh fuck, like, and they just like shut all the doors and stuff, and like they have to wait for all the bears to like disperse, and they just come in and just like destroy garbages and shit. Like they're just hungry, and there's not much they can do against a fucking like troop of polar bears. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see where that goes. Hopefully, they don't go extinct, and hopefully they don't come for us once once they become even like stronger from surviving climate change. And yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. What I'll get to the major discovery under the Antarctic ice sheet. What a sensational title. It's like, oh, what is it? Is it aliens? Is it Atlantis? We don't know. But it's a lot less exciting than that. Well, I guess it depends on what your interests are. So basically, a giant ice fish breeding colony was found. And by giant, I mean absolutely fucking massive. And it's super cool because like all these nests, like they're basically like dinosaur egg nests, except underwater. They're on like the ocean floor. And they're just like, little circles, full of like eggs, I guess. And they had 60 fucking million active nests across 92 square miles. And this was only 1,000 feet below the ice sheet. So, I don't know. That's really fucking cool if you ask me. Let's see. Who was the researcher here? It was Lillian Bohringer, student researcher at the Alfred Wegener Institute in Germany. She's the one, I guess, that discovered this, so good for her. Pretty fucking cool. Doing some stuff in Antarctica. These ice fish are kind of neat. Like they have transparent blood because they have no red blood cells or hemoglobin, and the reason for that is because they evolved to absorb oxygen through their skin instead of like, I guess, their gills. And I guess the Antarctic water is very rich in oxygen. So yeah, cool thing to know about fucking these crazy ice fish. What else will we discover? Like we're always like very fixated on space and what else is out there in the universe and the galaxy, and rightfully so. We need to get on that too. But there's so much here at home on Earth that we haven't discovered. Like the ocean. The majority of our planet is ocean, is water. and we lack the technology and the resources and the financing to really really see what is really going in and around all of that. And it's like it's also like a 3D environment. Like we think of it as just being like, you have the surface and the bottom, but there's like everything like in between, and there's a lot, and it's all moving around. There's currents and this and that. Like even if you could like get a picture of something at like one point, like if you could explore one area at a certain point, that might change seasonally throughout the year through like different currents. There might be like broods of like different things. Like, how like every year there's like a different brood of like, insects that like hatch. Like what if there's like different kinds of like fish or like crustaceans that do crazy shit like that? Like there's so much to be discovered, I think, just waiting to be observed. I guess I could tie this into like this orca story article I read. So basically the title of this was Killer Whale Frees Humpback from Fishing Line. That probably wasn't the title, but I feel like that's what the title should have been, because it's very simplified and straightforward to the point. So the crazy thing about this is that you may or may not know that orcas, aka killer whales, they prey on humpback whales from time to time. They like use them as like a food resource. So seeing an orca help a humpback whale, or like at least what was perceived to be helping a humpback whale, is kind of like a curious thing to see in the animal kingdom. So why would an orca or a killer whale? So I'll get to the story first. So there was this humpback whale. It had like a bunch of fishing line tied around its tail, in and around its like back end. And this humpback whale looked like it was underweight. It was like covered in parasites. It wasn't doing too well. Like obviously this fishing line was doing a massive detriment to it. And it was probably like, getting on the death's doorstep. It was in a weird area. I think this happened near Australia. It was in a weird area of the ocean that time of year. It should be like somewhere further north in the like, or just cold, somewhere colder, I think, like in the Arctic. I can't fucking remember what their migratory patterns are. But unusual for that region this time of year. But not unusual to see some orcas like bouncing around. So we think, I guess the researchers were thinking, the people that wrote this article, or the whale watchers, whoever they were, they thought, oh, this whale's probably here because it's having trouble swimming, migrating because of this like rope. Here are the signs of its like poor health, because now it's having trouble like feeding on like, the fish it usually hunts and stuff like that. Yeah, so these orcas came over, and I guess it looked like they were going to harass it, but what they described was that the orca kind of like made a few passes at it in like a weird way, and it like it went to go check out the humpback, and I guess it noticed the fishing line, and it actually grabbed it. It bit the fishing line off, like it took it to like, and it made like a weird like maneuver to like, I guess like pull it off. And then after it pulled it off, it just like kind of like fucked off and left it alone. And all the people watching it were just like, huh, that's super unusual to see. That's peculiar. And so like, what are the reasons why an orca would do this? So they were like, some of the speculation was like, perhaps it was just curious of the rope and dislodged it by accident. It's just kind of like, oh, what's this long thing? Maybe it's like, I don't know if orcas really eat like other whales, like, fecal matter or something. Or maybe it thought like it was giving birth, and it thought like, oh, I'm going to latch onto that and bite it off. It's probably like a placenta or something, or, but I guess they're also known to like bite satellite tags off larger whales as well. So a lot of researchers will tag satellite trackers onto them. They like, shoot them with it, and it like puts a tag in, and the orcas are like smart enough to be like, what the fuck is that? And they just like bite it off, take it off, and like spit it out. So it could have just been like one of those kind of behaviors. But then it kind of asked the question, like, why do they do that? But it's not unusual for an orca to actually skin their prey. Like they'll do it with like giant squids and like other whales, like when before they consume them. And they think the reason for this is because they're actively trying to avoid like the parasites and stuff like that. They don't want to consume them themselves, which is like super fucking smart. Like when you think about it, like people always talk about like how like SeaWorld and stuff is like inhumane, and people are underestimating the intelligence of these animals just because they're aquatic. But they have like an like a huge amount of intelligence that goes unestimated because they're not like manipulating and building in their environment and constructing things. But they don't need to because they're well adapted. They don't need houses, they don't need clothes. They're evolved to thrive in their environments where we aren't, so we have to kind of circumvent those things. Yeah, so there's another thing to show that they have like some sort of intelligence. They're not just like blind eaters. They're like, no, that's not good for you to consume. Rip that off, take that out. What else can I say? Like the big takeaway in this is perhaps it's an example of the highly debated altruism in animals. Like, did this orca just give this humpback whale like a second chance? I think some of the jokes in the like on this article were like they were just letting it fatten back up so they could eat it later. But yeah, I don't know. Like, is there altruism in animals? Like, can they, like humans hunt deer, right? We consume deer, like not all of us, but some of us. And some of us feed deer like in our backyards or something, or like leave like apples out, or don't hunt them, or we have protected areas where there is no hunting, and these deer populations that live within these areas don't really know human hunting. Is it perhaps not the same for orcas, but maybe they have discretion, like yeah, we prey on humpback whales, but we're not going to do them harm for no reason. Like if we're hungry, we eat, but if we're not hungry, we don't eat. And if maybe they have some sort of like empathy, and they're like, oh, that guy's in a fucking shitty spot, he's got a fucking net around him. Well, yeah, we do eat those things, but it's kind of like when you see like an animal that you consume regularly. If it's maimed or injured, you're not just going to immediately go kill it. You're well fed. You don't need to just kill something you find on the side of the road. You're going to help it and, let it like, give it a hand. So maybe it's like sort of like the same circumstance where it's like, maybe these animals just aren't always like kill or be killed. Maybe there's like a little bit of nuance and wiggle room in how they perceive things. Yeah. So, and then the last little article I want to talk about is, a story from Spain. It was in USA Today, and a badger had 90 Roman era coins on the floor of its nest. And these dated back from, I want to say 200 to 400 AD. I can't really remember. But anyway, old as fucking Christ's coins. And actually they're not that old. They're almost as old as that. And then yeah, so it's kind of like the question becomes like, why are people what happened was, I guess this guy was kind of just like hiking through there, and he came across them, and when he came across them, he notified like an archaeologist. And what they ended up doing was they stole all this poor badger's coins. Like this was probably his like life savings. He probably like been saving up for like generations since like 200 AD, passing down like the family line to family from badger to badger. And it's a real shame that humans get involved and decide, we're going to take these for ourselves. But upon further like excavating of the site, they end up finding like I think it was a total of 209 coins. So the badger had collected 90 of the 209 coins, and you know what? He was probably, I mean, he might have been like a scumbag badger. He might have been like collecting taxes on all the other rodents and then in the area. Might have been like making all the voles and like mice pay like a fee to live on the hillside with him. But maybe he was like that hamster. What was his name? Mr. Gox. You guys hear about this? The crypto investing hamster who was killing it like last year in the crypto trade. If you haven't heard about this, you should look it up. He was like this hamster that they just put like cameras on his cage and stuff like that. And I guess he had like little buttons or something or food dishes that said like buy or sell. And anyway, this hamster's predictions, he was crushing it in the crypto market. He was making a shit ton of money. And, what if I think he actually passed away. Super sad. But it's like it was super cool while it lasted. And, he's definitely doing way better than me in my crypto investments. So why is a badger and a hamster better at investing in crypto than I am? Like they got tons of coins, but they're getting robbed by, our archaeologists. It's a shame. I don't know. Give the badger back his coins. Just let him I feel like there's probably like folklore or like something that's like you find an animal with coins in its den. Like you're going to have like 25 years bad luck if you take one. You know what I mean? That's like something you read about in like fairy tale. It's like, oh, that's a leprechaun's house. Like leave that alone. The badger's guarding them. Some shit, I don't know. I wouldn't want to fuck with it. Poor badger, man. Really feel for the guy. Anyway, I think that's about it for this podcast. I don't really got anything else to talk about. That's about it. If you're enjoying the podcast, if you're enjoying these episodes that I'm doing, feel free to support me by just following, sharing, rating, all that beautiful stuff, hitting the notification bell, checking me out on Instagram at Epyon Explores. That's EPYONEXPLORES. And yeah, just, follow me. I do some like wildlife photography. I'm not very good at it, but I'm trying to get better. And I'm not that active. I should probably be way more active at it. But we're in like a very cold spike of winter right now. When it warms up a little bit more, I plan on getting out there more frequently. What else can I say? Yeah, share the podcast, get it out there. Tell your friends, tell your family. Be like, yeah, listen, I listen to really bad podcasts and I want to plague you with these really bad podcasts that I listen to too. And the reason for that is because, I don't know, I arbitrarily like this guy. And that would be cool with me if it's cool with you. What else can I say? I don't know. Hopefully I bang out an episode tomorrow for you guys, and I hope you enjoy it. I'm trying to get more nature photographers on, like professionals to interview or amateurs, and I hope you give those a listen because they are artists, and I think sometimes they go unappreciated because you think of people who do photography as, oh, they just go around snapping photos. It's not really that big of a deal, yada yada. And in some cases that is true, but when it comes to like wildlife photography, sometimes or even nature photography, you're seeing something that's rare, unusual, or like just like incredibly special. There are certain behaviors and things that animals do. There's certain varieties of animals that are rare and some of these behaviors are unprecedented. They're like newly discovered. They're incredibly difficult to capture on in a still image photo. Especially like ways they're positioned or behaving. They're very elusive, and a lot of these photographers are very ethical in how they approach this craft. They don't use bait. They don't, you know, they'll just stake out in the middle of like the wilderness nowhere for hours, like hours on end, like cold conditions, whatever the climate is, and there are also potential risks with this because there are like predatory animals out there as well, and they got to basically wear camouflage and they just got to sit there twiddling their thumbs hoping something comes along. And sometimes there's zero reward for doing that. And, they'll spend 12 hours for like 3 days in a row going back to like similar spots or same locations. And it won't be till like the third or fourth day where they actually get like an animal that shows up, and even when it does show up, they got to be quiet. Sometimes like deer, they're very, very good at hearing things. They can jump the shutter and just like the shutter closing can scare them. A lot of like birds of prey are also very skeptical of people and like their cameras. They don't know what the fuck it is. They think it's like a gun or something. But yeah, like they're showing they're bringing their love of like wildlife and nature to the internet, to the masses, to the people. And sometimes it's done in a very artful way where they've captured like the natural art of the world and put it into like a still image. They've captured the light, the photons, and they've graphed them for you of the natural world. And they're saying, listen, this is what I saw. This is what you should go see. This is what you should check out. So if you see any podcasts on my thing and it says wildlife photographer, nature photographer, so-and-so, or something so-and-so photographer, check it out. Check out their websites. Check out their social media. A lot of these people sell prints and stuff. If you have a love for wildlife, you have a love for nature, and these artists have produced something of quality or something that you perceive as quality, because beauty's always in the eye of the beholder, and you think that it would be like a nice fit for like the theme of your house. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like a nice theme, like I like having like a nature sort of sub themes in my house, whether that's like group of 7 paintings, whether that's, like nature inspired macrame, or like kind of like country style aesthetic, sort of like cabin lodge looking stuff. I like doing that. So I don't mind supporting the odd creator or photographer here and there, if they're selling something that meets my criteria of needs, or, in that niche or realm. And it's like, okay, like this photo would look really good in my bathroom hanging on the wall, or this print would look really good hanging on like, above the fireplace, or this and that. And, when you do it yourself, you obviously want to surround yourself with a lot of the good images you take. But if you don't do this stuff, but you love people that love it and you love it, I think support those people. And I'm not saying support me. I'm not even selling anything yet. I've been thinking about it, but I'm saying support other people first. And yeah, I don't know. It's good, man. Like a lot of these people, they volunteer, they take on like wildlife initiatives and this and that. A lot of the places where animals frequent, they have like no drone flying laws too. So they're not even getting like photographs and images through drone use. Like a lot of it is like boots on the ground, luck, and obviously, you'll get some bad actors in there that do use dubious things and stuff like that to try to get like shots of wildlife and stuff like that. And maybe in some of these discussion videos and interviews I do with these people, you'll get to hear like the kind of like the controversy or the dirt that's kind of associated with the craft and that's frowned upon. And I think it'll be eye-opening. So I hope everyone checks out, any of those episodes that come in the future. Anyway, guys, I'm going to sign off. I've talked your ear off. I hope you enjoy your weekend, and I hope if you get downtime, if you're commuting or you're bored and I don't know, hopefully you turn on this podcast and it's entertaining for you. All right, cheers.